collaborate together in order to achieve really a successful concrete sustainability. It's just very quick introduction, and I will start from GCCA Net Zero Roadmap. If you look at that roadmap, you will find the first two segments. The 22% refers to the design and construction, and the other 11% is about concrete efficiency production. And from our side at the ACI, we have already trying our best to cover those two important 32 segments. Very quickly, the first segment is already vet in the ACI 318 design construction code, where we have now in the upcoming edition or cycle of the 318-25 as a separate index about sustainability, and that will allow the structural engineer to consider sustainability while designing a concrete structure. The other one, which is the concrete efficiency production, ACI just launched a new code about low carbon concrete, and I think it's the only new code, the only code just talking about how to design about and having a benchmark, of course, and having like a low carbon concrete at your production facility. Going directly from there, I will introduce our first speaker. He will be indulge more about ACI initiatives. Professor Tony Nani, he's the ACI past president and the chair of Civil Engineering Department at Miami University. Tony?
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's certainly a pleasure to be with you here in Baku. Perfect, now you can hear me better. First of all, I want to thank, like Ahmed did, GCCA for hosting us. I think that the theme of collaboration is really the theme of our presentation today. So let me start with my slides. Okay, first of all, I would like to tell you a little bit about our organization. Basically, the first 4 slides are related to that. The mission of and the vision of ACI, in a sense, are very similar to what GCCA is looking at. And I just want to remind you of this very profound sentence in my mind: the need to use concrete effectively to meet the demands of a changing world. The key item is the changing world. We cannot stop progress, and we have to, as a concrete industry and a concrete organization, be part of this agenda. The footprint of ACI, I think, is important to remind you what we do for living and what we really can provide to this community to advance this technology. We have a number of very active members, about 4,000, and if you look at the value of their contribution, it exceeds $100 million. Headquartered in the north of Detroit, we have regional offices. We have an office overseas, as mentioned by Hamid, more than 140 committees, and then a lot of activities and documents. I think it's very important to understand that ACI is not just a domestic organization, as the name would seem to imply. We're not a domestic organization projecting internationally. We truly believe that we are an international organization. And this is represented by, I think, this slide. We have over 37,000 members, of which 17,000 are students. So at the previous event, one of the speakers mentioned the importance of educating the next generation. And the fact that we have 17,000 students actively involved in our organization really speaks to that issue. Of those 17,000, at the last convention that we held 2 weeks back in the US, we had over 500 of them attending the convention. So I think this is really important. 94 chapters all over the world. You see the map, 240 student chapters. We are active in 120 countries. You can see the map there in blue, the countries that we cover. And very important, and I'll speak to that issue very briefly, the building code, the ACI 318 that Ahmed mentioned, is used in over 17 countries worldwide. Another very important aspect that speaks to the quality of the construction industry is our certification program. We have certified over 800,000 people since the beginning of this program. And I think it speaks to two issues that are very fundamental in my mind. One is the quality of construction, but the other important thing is to elevate the quality of the people that are in our industry, reward them for what they're doing, and give them a sense of ownership. Working in the construction industry is probably not the sexiest thing in the world, but we need to make it a sexy thing. Then obviously we work with documents that are translated in many languages. This gives you an idea of the location of our chapters, and again is in a sense the reproduction of that map that you see there. Hamid mentioned something very relevant that we have done. Actually, I announced it last year in Dubai, and it took us quite a bit to really deploy it. This is the first and only building code that speaks to low carbon concrete. And the importance of this is not just in the document itself, but I want to tell you the reason why it was delayed a few months from publication is because we went through the process of public comments, and we had appeals, and we followed them, and we understood what needed to be done. And only just a week ago, we published this document. So we're extremely proud of it. The other thing that I want to mention is ACI does not only work on low carbon concrete as a document, as a code. Everything that we do in one way or the other is related to sustainability and resilience. So it's not just a single document. And you see here a list of 3 items that I think are fundamental. The building code speaks to the designers, but we have construction specifications. We have guides. We also deal with materials that are non-traditional. You see in these slides, for example, a code on the use of composite reinforcement in substitution of steel. This is what ACI does. Few more words about the sustainability code. You can see here the chapters. It was mentioned this morning in another presentation on the type of, let's say, benchmark that we're doing, particularly with companies in the US through the National Ready Mix Association. And again, I just want to give you an idea of what are the topics that are covered in this document. We don't need to go through the specifics here, but I would urge you to take a look at it and then perhaps later ask questions about what we're doing. With this, I thank you for your attention, and I hope that there will be exciting exchanges during the questions and panel discussion later on. Back to you.
Thank you, Tony. And I think we will leave all the questions to the end, to the panel discussion. Our next speaker is Dean Frank, Executive Director for ACI Center of Excellence for Engineered Carbon Concrete, NEW.
Thank you, Ahmed. And it is NEW. NEW is not an acronym. It is a play on the words carbon neutral. So factoid for the day. So I'll be talking about advancing reduced carbon concrete technologies. About NEW. So these are our brand new mission and vision statements, and we feel like they better fit what we're doing as an organization. So I just want to kind of unveil this for you. NEW leads the global concrete industry in advancing carbon reduction technologies, empowering all stakeholders to build a sustainable future. And our mission through leadership With integrity and global collaboration, NEW will accelerate the adoption and use of carbon reduction concrete technology. So we're really here, although we're part of ACI, we're not as an academic organization. We're about implementation, identifying high potential materials and technologies and getting them out to market, getting them used. Because what did we learn last year at COP28 through the global stocktake? Most of the parties are behind, and as a matter of fact, we may have even exceeded the 1.5 degree Celsius temperature increase last year. So there's a real sense of urgency within all industries, but we believe that the construction industry certainly has the potential to achieve the carbon reduction goals. So I want to talk a little bit about collaboration because that's a key part of accelerating technologies. That collaboration we found has been essential, getting key stakeholders, and we know that the concrete industry is huge. There's so many stakeholders that some of these folks don't even talk to each other, and we need to. We need to talk to each other, and we need to coordinate. We don't want to have redundancy and have one party do one thing and another group do something that contravenes what they're doing and basically negates it. So as NEW, our standalone meetings we call summits, and we've had 3 summits so far. We started off in fall of 2023. In our fall summits, we focus on federal initiatives. So we invited folks from U.S. federal agencies. Our last summit this fall, in October, we had representatives from 5 different federal agencies, and honestly, I wasn't real sure if these people even talk to each other because they all just seem to be going full steam, right? And so it's nice to know that there is some coordination among them, but also that they wanted to coordinate with us as an industry. So some of our outcomes, they really are looking to us as NEW. Someone needs to facilitate this critical interaction, and we're trying to fill that role. At our summit in California, so our spring summits, we focus on state initiatives because the mechanisms for implementing state policy versus federal policy is different. And so we went to California and brought stakeholders in the room who probably would have never talked to each other. And so you could kind of see the light bulb go off in their heads, and there were no arguments. They all understood that they're all looking to achieve the same mission. So I thought it was very revealing when we get these folks together. So we really need to identify those common challenges and the solutions, hopefully, at the same time to address those challenges while increasing efficiency and reducing redundancy. That's really what we don't have the opportunity to make a mistake or find that 2 parties are doing the same thing. We need efficiency. Other collaboration, I was happy and proud to represent the concrete industry in an invitation-only concrete summit, the first ever at the White House. So it was a very interesting meeting, of course, and I was kind of curious what this meeting was going to be about. I felt like, we're about to get lectured to as an industry, and as a matter of fact, it wasn't that way at all. They were very happy with what the concrete industry is doing. We're actually making progress. We have a long way to go, right? But it was pointed out that among the various building materials, especially those ones that are hard to abate, we're making the most progress and actually being looked to as a leader. So congratulations, everyone in the concrete industry. That's a good thing. For a long time we've been blamed for, this 7 to 8% of CO2 emissions, and reality is we are making progress. And the cool thing about concrete is we have the potential to get all the way there. So very cool meeting. They were encouraging us to continue our coordination. Very happy with the work that ACI is doing and NEW is doing. And they support, our significant efforts to decarbonize. So we did help with the Boston. They had 3 additional regional meetings that took place after the White House meeting in Washington, D.C., and we took part in the Boston meeting as well. And very interesting groups of people, again, stakeholders that you wouldn't expect to come into the same room and talk about the same subject with such enthusiasm as well. So anytime I get an opportunity to talk to an audience, I want to thank ACI for their forethought in creating the Center of Excellence for Carbon Neutral Concrete. Thank you, ACI. I wouldn't be here today without them thinking about the subject. As well, I want to thank our additional supporting members, Baker and Breakthrough, and then our affiliate members as well, our folks that have these materials in hand and are trying to make the advancements in material and technologies that we need to achieve our carbon reduction goals. In addition, we work with a lot of allied organizations that we have memorandums of understanding with. These are other mission-aligned organizations that we believe we, again, need to coordinate and collaborate. So whether it's ICC or ASTM or FICEM or other cement-related organizations, Portland Cement Association, we all believe that we're working in the same direction, but we also need to coordinate. So all these folks are working with new in order to get to the carbon reduction goals. So I want to talk a little bit about advancing these materials, and in order to do that, we kind of need to learn about, well, what's out there now. There's a lot of noise, there's a lot of information, and I'm not going to say disinformation, but there's just a lot of information to digest. And so we thought, let's just try and take a snapshot right now, what's available, what's going to be available later. And so we developed and identified, we developed a survey, and the first survey we put together was just huge, and we knew that no one was going to ever fill this out. So we broke it into two parts. And the first part really with the essential information. I'll tell you about what's in it in a minute. But we identified over 100 companies worldwide that offered some sort of material or technology. I know there's more because we keep adding companies to this list almost weekly. And then we culled that list down to about 50 companies, just looking domestically in North America first, and started targeting them with this survey. So we really were trying to identify the types of low carbon materials available now and when and where they're available, what types will be available in the future and when and what types of quantities. And we tried to come up with different, I could call them bins or material classifications. What we're finding is there's some that just kind of span a broad spectrum. So we've got this whole spectrum of different materials and technologies, which is great, but we don't have the silver bullet yet, right? So we're also, of course, we're trying to help these companies. So we want to know what their challenges are. We want to know how can we help? Do you need a new standard written? We can work with ASTM. Do you need an accreditation criteria, or do you need some sort of testing analysis? We're going to work with an organization to help you do that. And we've been doing that also with NIST, the National Institute of Science and Technology, trying to coordinate those efforts with them as well. We also know that things change very, very quickly in this landscape. So again, this is a snapshot. We're already in our second round of surveying folks who filled out the first time, but we're also going back to the folks who didn't fill it out, ask them to fill out the first part, and then the ones that filled out the first part fill out the second part. So I'll tell you about those parts. So the first part we're asking, who are you? What kind of business development are you in? Market availability, supply chain information. What kind of technology and methodology does it encompass? What are your environmental claims? And if you are making claims, what sort of substantiation do you have to support those claims, whether it's an EPD or other test data? Does it pertain to any specific specification, or does it need a new specification? And just a general idea of cost, as far as is it higher or lower or about the same as ordinary Portland cement concrete? And so, like I said before, we identified about 52 companies that we targeted heavily to get the survey completed, and we got 49 responses out of those 52. So we were able to learn a lot about just those folks, and so we're going to go back and get them to fill out Part B. So Part B's got more information. We're hoping that that will get them to fill it out. What are their challenges? Where are they at as far as funding, pilot, stage, lab stage, commercial, or whatever? what are their environment claims, but we did a lot about performance, fresh and hardened concrete properties and so forth. So really looking forward to that. And finally, our validation program, I think I talked about this previously. We're really, it's based on ISO 17029, which is a conformity assessment process, basically evaluating the environmental claims that folks are making about their materials. It's a third-party independent evaluation, basically saying, yes, we believe this information is true, we have a high degree of assurance, and so forth. So the key is to quickly identify the high potential materials and technologies and help them get to market. We're not an academic association. We're not the technical association constrained by consensus process, so we can move things quickly. And so I realize that I'm going over my time, so I'll hand it over back to Ahmad, and he can introduce our next speaker.
Thank you, Dean, for this presentation, but you didn't invite us to the White House, don't you? Okay, so our next speaker from International Code Council, and we're still speaking about codes and standards and how we do that collaboration together. Ryan Colker, Vice President, Innovation International Council. Please.
Thank you. Thanks so much, and really do appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Let me start with a little bit about, went the wrong way. About the International Code Council. So we develop model building codes and standards that help support realization of safety, sustainability, and resilience in the built environment. And then also looking at sort of what are the solutions and tools that folks really need to adequately apply those codes and standards. So things like conformity assessment activities, personnel training and certification, third-party evaluation services, and really sort of building out that ecosystem. So we talked a little bit about sort of ACI, codes and standards that focus specifically on sort of performance attributes of concrete and related materials. ICC actually develops 15 model codes that cover sort of the breadth of performance attributes of the built environment. And so we really sort of collect the best information, the best standards from around the world and incorporate them into the building codes that are then adopted widely across the US, but also internationally. And so, we've already sort of talked about the opportunities through codes, standards, and innovation to address some of the challenges that we have within the built environment. And so ICC has been really focused on sort of the need for capacity building to support a broad ecosystem that addresses the safety, sustainability, and resilience needs that we have. And so we've identified sort of this ecosystem on sort of how to move forward, how to address sort of the capacity needs to help move the industry forward. I'm going to focus on sort of the two black gears here at the bottom, really product conformance and product testing, inspection, and certification. So how do we assure that the claims that are being made are actually being met? How do we verify those? How do we assure that products are meeting the standards that are actually created and that we're achieving what we're saying we're achieving? And particularly, when we're talking about sort of innovative approaches, things that maybe the market, architects, engineers, code officials, jurisdictions may not be particularly familiar with, that are essential to achieving our climate and resilience goals, we need a mechanism to be able to get those things into market. And so ICC, through our ICC evaluation service, really focuses on sort of that commercialization valley of death. So how do we actually sort of assure that products are meeting those needs, while also assuring that the folks that will be using those products have some sort of comfort in being able to use them. And so we really use sort of product certification as a mechanism to be able to do that. So evaluating a product against a code, a standard, or some other sort of mechanism to assure that we're achieving what we're saying we're achieving. And so that includes sort of testing of products, but also looking at the manufacturing process itself, sort of regular compliance checks that build sort of that confidence into the market. And that's particularly important for sort of emerging materials, emerging products where there may not already be a standard. It's probably sort of an innovative approach, but we need to be able to figure out how do we actually get that into the marketplace. And so we have some mechanisms to be able to do that through acceptance criteria. So maybe there's an adjacent product that does have sort of performance requirements. Maybe there's a whole sort of new mechanism of testing and verification that needs to be put in place. And so we're able to develop acceptance criteria which really serve as, call it a pre-standard, but really identifies sort of what are those testing needs and how do we verify that sort of new products and new materials are actually meeting those requirements. And so sort of once the acceptance criteria is developed, we have a mechanism to then sort of test products and materials against those acceptance criteria and actually deliver an evaluation service report. So it talks about sort of what are the testing, what testing has been done, when and where can this product be used, what purpose does it serve, and does it actually meet specific performance requirements. And so that really provides this mechanism where designers, engineers, architects, contractors, and code officials, jurisdictions themselves, can actually have some level of confidence that they're actually getting what that product says it does. So, ESRs really focus on sort of performance-based attributes. So in the concrete space, structural durability, those sorts of issues. At the same time, while we're trying to address sort of environmental performance, we have sort of a companion piece to that through environmental product declarations. And so being able to sort of evaluate the environmental impacts of specific products and being able to sort of marry that with the performance criteria as well. Because I think one of the big challenges that we see in sort of getting new environmentally preferable sort of solutions to market is that product actually going to achieve the same level of structural performance and durability? And so if we can really marry the evaluation service reports with environmental product declarations, that really provides sort of the confidence to the industry. So I'll give you one example of an acceptance criteria in the concrete space that really helps to bridge that gap. And that's acceptance criteria 529. So really looking at the performance of low carbon cements. And so sort of bridging that gap of if we do have sort of low carbon cements entering the marketplace, how do we assure that they are meeting the durability and structural performance requirements? And so being able to then produce evaluation service reports sort of against that acceptance criteria can really provide some certainty to the market, help drive increased innovation, and really move things forward. And so, I think as we start to talk about sort of the challenges within the built environment, we really need to have sort of a multi-attribute approach. So it's not just about sort of the resilience of buildings or the resilience of materials or the durability, but also what are the impacts on some of the other things that we care about. So things like operational energy, embodied energy and carbon, durability, maintainability, environmental performance. And so being able to sort of bring all of those pieces together, so conformity assessment is sort of a really key part of sort of that broad ecosystem to assure that codes, standards, and innovation activities are actually delivering what we're hoping to achieve. So really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Happy to talk with folks more. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. The acceptance criteria is really very important. I remember that in Dubai, where we have like an ICC office there, it does really help a lot with Dubai municipality and other authorities just to evaluate the innovation, not only in sustainable, products, but in other. But that's really very important. Do you have your PPEs with you? Because we're going to the job site with CEMEX. Our next speaker, Kathy Mann, Global Head of Public Affairs with CEMEX.
Thank you. And thank you to ACI and NU for having us here today. It's a pleasure to be with everyone in Baku And you've heard about some of the details regarding technical specs and codes and standards, and I'm going to take us up a little bit on collaboration and how that is looking across CEMEX. So one of the things I'll start with, it's pretty much our mandate within CEMEX, and this is it's our decade to deliver. And we're already halfway through that decade to deliver. So we have a very important mandate within the decade, and we focus on 4 key things. And it's encouraging regulation that drives the building codes, regulation standards that we've heard about today that allow for the prescription of these products to be used in materials and projects. Regulation that drives municipal and industrial waste into alternative energy to fuel our kilns. Establishing market-driven carbon pricing mechanisms that allow for advancements in our carbon reduction technologies, and seeking funding and alliances to develop new technologies that reduce carbon emissions in the cement manufacturing processes to accelerate the development and scaling of carbon capture, storage, and utilization. So, since we're halfway through it, we need to recognize that these outdated regulations and codes and standards do not align with where we're going in terms of a green, carbon neutral, and circular economy in the future. So with that, ACI has done their part, NEW is doing their part, ICC is doing their part, but the rest of them, we can no longer accept these outdated regulations. We have to accelerate changing those into what we need for the future. Most of us are demonstrating what we can do with these as possibilities, and I just want to share a few examples today from CEMEX about what that looks like. So first is our solar clinker. CEMEX was the first to produce the first ever solar clinker using solar energy in partnership with Synhelion. And it's a breakthrough technology that validates the steps that we need to accelerate full-scale adoption across the industry. Synhelion technology harnesses the power of the sun to power cement kilns, eliminating the need for other fuel resources. The technology captures 100% of the carbon emissions, which can be stored to use as alternative fuel for production. It also helps the cement manufacturing to achieve a net zero level of emissions. A few of examples of CEMEX working across some of our local governments are pretty exciting. Panama. We took a charge in 2022 to make Panama our first country operation across all of our facilities to be zero waste to landfill. We started in January. By December, the company's first zero waste to landfill operation was in order. Just at this one facility, a plant, we're saving more than 140 tons per year of our own waste being sent to landfill just by co-processing. In 2023, we expanded these efforts across 4 ready-mix plants. We're incorporating them into our corporate offices across the operations, as well as our distribution centers in Panama. We're using this effort as our North Star in terms of what we're trying to do for country operations to replicate what's possible in terms of co-processing. We're hosting key figures, everyone from the administration of the Panama Canal, governors from across Colombia, and municipal governments and business leaders from across the United States. We're hosting them to show them what's possible when this happens. Of course, we need the regulations to go with that to leverage in other facilities, but it is a good opportunity to show what's possible. In Mexico, we launched our Regenera business line in 2022, focusing on receiving, managing, recycling, and co-processing waste. Today, in Mexico, each person generates about 1 kilogram of waste per day. However, just 1 out of these 10 kilograms is disposed of waste, of the disposed waste is treated efficiently. The other 90% is sent to open-air landfills, and not all those landfills are regulated, and there's about 2,000 open-air landfills across the country. The federal government continues making efforts to advance circular economy principles, but there's not yet one single comprehensive circular economy law that calls for standardization of this for safe and disposal, effective treatment of waste. Some states and some cities, like Mexico City, are taking independent action to promote circular economy principles. We started this effort when now President Sheinbaum was the mayor of Mexico City. So now we're leveraging that relationship, and she's enacting that to make it a national circular economy law across all of Mexico. Mexico City formalized its zero waste plan, and it aims to become a zero to waste to landfill city. Regenera collaborates with the Mexico City by managing about 35% of Mexico City's daily generated waste. That means we manage about 1.3 million metric tons of Mexico City's waste per year. To put that in perspective, that's about the equivalent of 3 Empire State Buildings. So, from all this waste, we operate 4 separation plants across the city. We're literally separating, recycling, co-processing, utilizing the waste. We send organic waste either to regulated landfills or composting facilities, while plastic, glass, aluminum, and other materials that can be recycled are recycled and reused. Inorganic waste that cannot be recycled is shredded, processed, compacted, and sent to our cement plants where we use it as fuel. Our waste management practices benefit the environment by promoting landfill avoidance and eliminating some of the contamination and waste. Again, President Sheinbaum is elevating this as an example. Hopefully we'll hear about this as her administration takes hold. Also in Mexico, we're working with Querétaro to become the first zero waste city in Mexico. Querétaro is one of the 10 largest cities in Mexico, leading the country's first zero waste to landfill initiative in partnership with our Regenera business line. Querétaro generates 950 million tons of waste, about 1 kilogram per capita of the general waste. The city's Brokers plant, owned and operated by Regenera, is central to this effort. I mention Brokers because it was the first plant in Mexico to implement European standard waste separation equipment, which enhances the efficiency and environmental sustainability. Since Regenera assumed operations 3 years ago, the plant has nearly tripled its capacity, now processing about 23,000 tons of waste monthly, which accounts for about 90% of Querétaro's total waste. It converts over 40% of inorganic non-recyclable waste into energy for our cement plant and reduces landfill waste through the avoidance. A new project aims to increase this to over 90% by drying organic fraction for fuel and cutting nearly as many 12,000 tons of CO2 emissions per month. So, one final one. In Monterrey, where our company is headquartered, we have also established El Volcan, which is the first zero-waste stadium in Mexico, processing over 110 tons of waste per year. We did an education effort with the sports authority, with the team, with the stadium, with the community, leveraging the waste in terms of turning it into a completely circular stadium, the first of its kind. As you know, the National Football League in the US is expanding into Mexico, Latin America, and other countries. We're leveraging that as an opportunity to showcase this as an example of what's possible in other countries and other jurisdictions. So, hard to abate is a decades-old term that was defined when it wasn't clear how to transition to a carbon-neutral industry. Today, it's much clearer, and companies working across the value chain with standards organizations, governments, NGOs, and others can deliver this readily. It's readily available, the technology's here today, and we're creating value while we're doing it. And since many of these topics and conversations at COP here have ended with or transitioned to conversations relative to the US election, I would like to offer one quote from another US president that we may be all able to look up to, and that's Harry Truman. And it's amazing what we can accomplish if we don't care who gets the credit. So, by all of us working together, I think it's a great opportunity in terms of leveraging and determining what's possible and what's next and how we can bring these things forward to life. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. Very interesting. I think we have like a lot of questions for you about all those initiatives, but let's go to the panel discussion. I will request our respected speakers to come to the front seats. And also I will request Andrew Minsk from GCCA, director, to join us, our panel discussion. I will start with one question from my side to each panelist, then we will open the question to the audience. Thank you. Tony, you have the first question. I'm from the ACI, and also I heard a lot about the initiatives about the ACI, but in the convention last week, this is my first time I heard a meeting about using seawater concrete. Can you tell us about that, please?
Well, actually, I chair that committee, so I think I can speak to that issue intelligently. I'm not sure intelligently, but at least speak about it. Actually, we have worked on the potential of using seawater as mixing water. And we started a project approximately 7 years ago with funding from Europe. But that project was just one of the many. But I think that now the interest has shifted to the countries around the world that have the issue of fresh water. And in particular, in the MENA region that you know very well, countries like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia are really looking at the use of seawater as part of the mixture. Now, the challenge appears to be significant, but I'm not of that opinion. I think we can certainly implement that technology, not necessarily in every type of mixture, but certainly the ones, for example, that are used for coastal construction. There are wonderful examples in Asia, in China, Hong Kong in particular, where construction is happening as we speak in that type of environment. I think that the job of ACI, together with our colleagues at ASTM, is to develop specifications for the use of these materials. And seawater is only one of the items. Obviously, the focus here is on cement as perhaps the material that needs more attention in terms of CO2 emission, but there is also the issue of aggregates in addition to water. And so the potential of using non-traditional aggregates like dune sand or sea sand is really exciting. So I think this is a holistic approach. The committee is working very hard, and we have a commitment to develop the first guide by the end of this coming year.
Thank you, Tony. And I can mention here that in our way to the COP29, the guys in Saudi Arabia, they want to implement an application after 1 month, paving, and we were discussing that yet, so it's very ambitious. Going to Dean, Frank, with respect to the survey that you have just mentioned, are there any insights that you can provide at this time? And also you can just give us a little about the White House, just how is it looking from inside?
Well, some insights, yeah. There are some things that I can say that some of the companies have really good marketing, but there's they could be lab scale at that point. So we found that there's a broad variety of solutions and technologies, but there's not one single one that looks like it's going to run the ball to the goal line. And the majority of them are related to cementitious materials or alternative materials, but we also see some new things coming that are related to, and we know that admixtures are going to have to be a part of the solution. So I think they're starting to realize that they've got to reformulate and help with some of these new formulations. What do you want to know about the White House?
Nothing.
We tried to get into the Truman bowling alley, but door was locked. So.
Okay, thank you, Dean. I just will say here that Dean will be presenting much more about that survey in Dubai on February. So I think at that time you will be having like more results. In addition, we at the UAE chapter, ACI UAE chapter, also we took some parts from his survey to conduct it like locally. So you will be hearing in Dubai about the same survey, but at the local level in Dubai. Brian, very quick, what impact has that had on the market? And are there any opportunities to replicate such an effort internationally, respecting to what we said about the US market?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I mentioned, the codes, standards, and conformity assessment activities that we're involved in really help support activities, sort of around the globe. So we're seeing the Saudi code, for instance, is based off of our model codes. We're seeing implementation in Caribbean and elsewhere. And so as we look at sort of international markets and international trade, sort of having consistent conformity assessment activities that can help support and assure that products are actually achieving the goals that we're looking for is really essential. And I think that's particularly critical for the Global South, of assuring that they're not getting sort of inferior products, but are actually being able to achieve their own goals. And so conformity assessment really helps to sort of support those types of activities.
Yeah, thank you. I think also you have started like some acceptance criteria and evaluation services in Saudi Arabia, and that does include sustainability, I believe. So. Yeah.
So our evaluation service reports are actually accepted in numerous different countries, and so that really helps to sort of provide manufacturers with opportunities to function in multiple markets without having to sort of test to an individual market, but having sort of those acceptance criteria and evaluation service reports, accepted Middle East, Australia, New Zealand, Europe, and elsewhere.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. Kathy, you already mentioned about the collaboration with SDOs, but what can we do to accelerate that collaboration from your, maybe more insights about that collaboration?
Sure. So as we've heard, some of the standards organizations are advancing or are advanced. Others are not. And, so we need to leverage working across our collective value chain, whether it's the company, the standards organization, a supplier, a vendor, an NGO, a sports team. It could be anyone, to leverage those relationships and build that awareness and consensus. It's all about advocating for these policies and what's needed for change. And we're leveraging every opportunity we can to do that. I was on the bus here to the Blue Zone today, happened to be sitting across some folks from the U.S. Department of Energy. Absolutely took advantage to tell them all about, what we were doing and, our virtual low carbon concrete and what's possible, where it's being used, and they had no idea. So it's just finding those opportunities and then being able to share that knowledge as we, can across the value chain, introducing them to ACI, introducing them to NEW, introducing them to the ICC, introducing them to the GCCA. So I think we just need to do a better job at collaborating. We do a great job at talking to each other. I think we need to do a better job of talking about each other more openly.
Thank you, Kathy. And I can tell also I had like 2 meetings with CMEX UAE, and we have discussed many collaboration initiatives. We didn't start any one yet, but I believe we're hoping to do so in the near future. Thank you. Of course, please.
Can I add a comment to Kathy's response, which I think is right on the money? The panel is really missing somebody from government, and I think your meeting in the bus was critical in my mind because we have to have at the table the government agencies. I know that hopefully we represent the innovation as different groups from industry to NGOs, but without the government buy-in, our life will be a little harder. We're going to get there irrespectively. But I think if we had the government agencies, and not necessarily in the US, but all over the world, mandating these things, then the target, the goal line will be much closer. So thanks for the comment.
Thank you, Tony. I would say that I was discussing, not arguing with Andrew this morning about the roadmap for net zero. And we were just discussing maybe the first two segments. Allow me to call them segments, if you allow me. Just what collaboration are needed to achieve that reduction or forecast reduction?
Yeah, so thanks so much, and thank you for collaborating with us on delivering this event and being part of our pavilion. For those not familiar with our roadmap, I'm holding up the page of it within our progress and action report. So those people who are joining online, you can download this document. There's a quick summary of the roadmap, but then after this diagram of the roadmap, and it's the two top colors in green that Ahmed has referred to, we have a double spread on each of them. And on that double spread, just picking up your point, Tony, there's a blue text on the right-hand side, which are the policy enablers that we have to work with government. And there's there's a cement breakthrough initiative, which is governments coming together. And we've got on this stand an industry roundtable with those governments, and then all those countries in that breakthrough are meeting together tomorrow night in a private country roundtable to discuss exactly these things. But we're there on behalf of all of us to say what it is that our sector needs. On the left-hand side of the page is a reminder of what the lever is or the segment is and what the progress is. So one of the collaborations would be that Kathy's already mentioned some great progress actually it's on this page. In fact, your Mexico case study is on this page. But on subsequent pages, there's the other two levers, the efficiency in design and construction and the concrete production one you mentioned. And in those ones, the progress that we can report currently is just case studies, because it's not Kathy's firm and the other members of GCCA who are doing it, who are already transparently reporting progress on the other levers on the manufacturing. We don't have the data on the levers on design and construction and concrete production. And that's where, in terms of the reporting, the collaboration will be helpful. Reporting is one thing, it's important, but it's also managing it and delivering that decarbonisation. And that's the other bit where we can collaborate. And I don't know how much time is left, but my parting message, final thing to say would be, we're delighted to be able to collaborate with all of you and with others to help deliver on those other two things to decarbonise the sector.
If I could add one other thing. I mean, in parallel to the concrete breakthrough, there's actually a buildings breakthrough, which also calls for near zero emission and resilient buildings as the new normal by 2030. And so sort of recognizing the contributions of concrete, both on the emissions side and on the resilience side, there's naturally sort of that intersection there. And we can't achieve the buildings goals without the concrete goals. And so being able to sort of have that sort of collaboration and working towards that same goal is really critical. So really appreciate the opportunity and looking forward to meeting those.
Thank you, Ryan, for the comments. Thank you, Andrew. I think I will have a copy of that roadmap with me to Dubai. I will open the floor if there is any question from the audience to the panelists. Okay, so I have the privilege to ask more questions. A couple of questions. Just goes to Dean. Is that validation program available right now?
Test. Okay. It will be very soon. We're actually finished with our piloting process. We've fine-tuned our quality management system and all of procedures, and they're under review by our board of directors. We've switched from second party to third party, which is the direction that the market wants us to go. And I think by the end of the year, we'll be ready to put the shingle outside the door and welcome new clients. So stay tuned to Anyone out there who wants to have new validate or verify their environmental claims, because we'll be out there for business by the beginning of 2025.
Well, great, thank you. Tony, you spoke just that ACI is an international organization. Talking about the sustainability initiatives, how can we see that?
Okay, as I mentioned, we at ACI, I think we have realized that the opportunities, not just for growth of the organization, but for impact, are really outside North America. And so the effort of the organization now is really to look at the globe as our playground. And the efforts that we are making is, I think, significant, and you will see it in the years to come, particularly with the creation of offices like the one that we have in the MENA region. The board of direction has already discussed the opening of what we call the international desks, and then they will move to regional offices. So we're very excited, and we think that, again, the theme of this event, the collaboration and the communication, is the solution. The only solution is if we look at the map and we think of that in its entirety. I want to go back again to the question that Kathy answered. The role of governments, in my mind, is fundamental at the international level, in particular, not only for the mandates, but for the investments in R&D. I'm an academician. I'm a volunteer at ACI, but my paycheck comes from the University of Miami. Research is fundamental to move the needle in the right direction, and we cannot ask industry to fund it totally. There has to be a role of the government, irrespective of the country, to invest in this type of innovation. So the cognizant effort of authorities to move the needle in the right direction is important in these two areas, the mandates as well as the investments. And again, that's, in my mind, is key, and is key internationally.
I can add another important role for government is around procurement, really sending signals to the market of we're going to purchase innovative and sustainable products, and this is the type of demand that we can assure the industry and really help move things forward.
Talking about governments, Andrew, which countries are really involved in the breakthrough initiative? Just for our information.
I think the big picture is that the Buildings Breakthrough has got dozens of members, and over 70 signed the agreement coming out of the Building and Climate Forum in Paris, and yet we are just into the low teens. So one of the ambitions of this COP is to get those countries that signed up to the Buildings Breakthrough, for all the reasons that Ryan explained, to sign up to the Cement and Concrete Breakthrough as well, because cement and concrete is fundamental to their delivery of sustainable and resilient buildings.
Well, I think this is the end of our event today. Again, I will truly appreciate your participation, our respected panelists and speakers. And again, I would like to send big thanks to GCCA for making this happen. And I think we will be meeting you again in Brazil next time. Okay, thank you all.